Hello, welcome to the channel Why Stories. Enjoy watching.
Natalia parked near the office center, got out of the car, and walked up to the porch. There was another busy workday waiting for her ahead, full of hustle, business meetings, and phone calls. There was nothing remarkable for a firm's manager's day. It would have just flashed by in the daily routine if, at that moment, a young man hadn't opened the glass door. And if he had been looking straight ahead, Natalia might have looked away after all. After all, staring at strangers head-on is at least impolite. However, the stranger was looking somewhere off to the side and was talking on the phone, ignoring everyone. He was a slender, blue-eyed blonde man. His beauty was so rare that he could easily be on the cover of a glossy magazine or on a billboard. But he was just descending the steps of an ordinary office center. In one hand, he was holding a phone, and in the other, a transparent box with a cake tied with a raspberry ribbon. There were several shops and a popular bakery in the building on the first floor. Natalia had never seen this blonde man before in the center or nearby. She couldn't tear her gaze away from him. And honestly, she didn't want to. Forgetting about everything in the world, Natalia seemed to be in a dream or under hypnosis as she was climbing the steps, and the next moment everything shattered. In the next instant, she felt a fairly significant jolt, and then something fell on her. It was a cake. Luckily, Natalia managed to instinctively catch it, and the cake didn't crash onto the steps. But this fact didn't comfort her much. Never before in her life had she found herself in such a ridiculous position. Just imagine this: an adult woman forgot about everything in the world, stared at a handsome man, and even ran into him. Fortunately, there were no acquaintances or subordinates nearby. Otherwise, she couldn't avoid the gossip. Natalia had reasons to consider herself impeccable and had quite high expectations for her employees. But she behaved the same way. What a disgrace. She glanced around furtively. Fortunately, the space around was deserted. No one else was climbing or descending the stairs, at least that was lucky. "I'm so sorry," Natalia muttered, blushing. She handed the cake to the stranger, trying not to look at him. However, unlike Natalia, he didn't seem embarrassed or upset at all. And, it seemed, he wasn't even surprised by such a strange situation. He carelessly said, "I should apologize. It's my fault. I got carried away with the conversation and didn't notice such a pretty lady." Natalia thought that after his words, she blushed even more. Meanwhile, the stranger casually said, "All right, we'll talk later. I'll call you back." And, finally, he took the cake box, which she was still holding outstretched. "Thank you for catching the cake. Otherwise, little would have been left of it. My name is Otilio. What's yours?" The cake, indeed, turned out to be very tender, airy, with luxurious creamy flowers and whipped cream foam. It was good that it survived. Natalia, Otilio smiled. She again, involuntarily, admired the bright smile and cute dimples on Otilio's cheeks. It was probably time to end the unexpected conversation and go about her business. The incident ended well, and this fleeting, random encounter meant nothing. However, Natalia still hesitated. Something was preventing her from taking a few steps and going inside the building. And it seemed that Otilio was not in a hurry either. What a coincidence. "Do you work here?" he asked. "I do. And I was passing by, saw the sign of the bakery. I'm planning to congratulate my aunt on her birthday. There are wonderful cakes and pastries here." Natalia supported the topic. "We always buy something for birthdays and holidays. And for the last corporate party, we ordered a huge cake." "Well, then, my aunt is lucky," Otilio said. "She loves sweets." It seemed that there was nothing more to discuss. The topic was closed. Natalia took a step towards the entrance to the building. "Nice to meet you," she heard in response and replied. "Nice to meet you too." The glass doors closed, leaving the bustling street outside, along with the cars rushing along the road, the bright spring sun, and a new acquaintance. The minor incident was over. The silly situation ended pleasantly, and it was time to forget about it. However, there was no time to think about strangers now. As soon as Natalia entered the office, the secretary decided to discuss the morning's issues with her. And then Natalia talked to major clients, figured out which designer had missed an error in the layout, and approved new promotions for the month. At lunch, she met with business partners and the deputy. After lunch, the new everyday chores of the owner of a large advertising agency began, and the random morning episode slipped out of her mind. There was no time to remember a fleeting encounter. Many people nowadays barely have time to think about their close relatives and friends, let alone some strangers, even if he was very attractive. But, nevertheless, Natalia remembered this event in the evening, when she could relax and rest from a hectic day. She came out of the bathroom, carelessly tied the belt of her silk robe, approached the mirror on the wall, and carefully combed her wet, slightly curly, chestnut hair after the shower. Natalia wasn't a beauty, and she knew it well. She had a slightly long nose, a too narrow face, and thin lips. It was difficult to call her naturally attractive or even simply pretty. She realized and accepted this a long time ago, in high school. Many girls turned into attractive, nice girls, and Natalia still remained awkward and angular. She still had teenage acne. Some of her classmates were already having their first romances and planning their dates, and Natalia's peers paid attention to her only when they needed to copy her homework or prepare for an essay, as she was a straight-A student. At the prom, she was dressed in the most expensive dress and French shoes. Her father gave her a set of earrings and a pendant on a chain from a jewelry boutique, and he bought her a purse from a well-known designer in the city. He himself took his daughter to the salon, where she had a fashionable hairstyle and makeup done. But still, the miracle didn't happen. Natalia didn't turn into a princess beauty overnight. At the prom, classmates and boys from other classes danced and joked not with her but with others. Only Ignacio Ferrer, the shy boy, asked her to have a slow dance with him, and even then, as she assumed, just because he was grateful to her. After all, Natalia helped him a lot with the exam. Not everyone was lucky enough and didn't get attention from the opposite sex or didn't receive compliments. Well, this isn't the main, and certainly not the only, goal in life. Natalia studied hard at the university and got an internship, although her father could easily pay for her education. She attended all sorts of courses, but she certainly didn't become a dull memorizer. In college, unlike in high school, she made many friends. She also managed to do sports. She had a slender figure by nature, and the exercises gave her confidence and taught her to move beautifully. From time to time, Natalia enjoyed herself at student parties. At one of these parties, she noticed a guy who was 2 years older than her. He immediately became interested in the cheerful, sociable girl. They've been dating for a few months, and then they decided to get married. Somehow, everything spun around very quickly. Probably it was too fast. Natalia's father was not thrilled about the early marriage of his only daughter, who was still only in her second year of studying. But he didn't particularly object. He himself, after the death of his dearly beloved wife, didn't get married again. This sturdy, attractive man in the prime of his life, a successful businessman and the life of the party, had mistresses. But none of them crossed the threshold of his house, and he did not let any of them into his heart. He truly loved only his daughter. The father wanted her to be happy and to get whatever she wanted from life. If you've decided, go for it. Although, it probably won't last long. In any case, I'm on your side. Just don't have a child right away. You still need to get your diploma. They had a luxurious wedding, thanks to Natalia's father. They moved into an apartment studio that her father bought for them as a gift. Then the celebration ended, and the everyday life of a young family began. They were not ready for the everyday routine. Her father saw it coming. Pretty soon, they took off the rose-colored glasses, mutual love disappeared, and interest in each other vanished. They turned out to be too different. The serious, goal-oriented Natalia easily combined communicating with friends and studying, getting a good education, and trying to achieve something in life. Those were her plans. But the newlywed husband was completely different. Carefree and thoughtless Alex went out to parties and couldn't stop. He needed constant entertainment, parties until morning, nightclubs, drinking, and pretty girls. There was nothing surprising about it. He was young. However, irritation and dissatisfaction with each other slowly accumulated. Natalia was tired of writing Alex's coursework while he was hanging out with friends somewhere, making sure he didn't skip exams. And she was only in her second year of studying while he was a graduate. Now Natalia sincerely wondered why she liked this guy. Before, she thought he was the best, the most witty, and the most charming. After just a little time spent side by side, it turned out that they liked different movies and different music. They looked at the same events differently. But at first, it seemed that they had a lot in common. It just seemed that way. The last straw was a rather annoying incident. Natalia's father invited them to celebrate the new year together in a country club. Natalia planned everything in advance, but Alex completely forgot that they were expected. He ran to see a friend on the last day of the year for just an hour and ended up partying all night, turning off his phone. He showed up past noon on January 1st. Natalia didn't get upset. She just calmly suggested they divorce. They parted ways amicably without loud arguments and scandals, and at the university, they didn't avoid each other. They greeted each other and sometimes even shared news like friends. They just realized in time that they were not meant to be together. After the official divorce, Alex moved back to the dormitory, and after receiving his diploma, he moved to the capital. The failed marriage didn't leave a deep, unhealing wound in Natalia's heart. There were no dramatic scenes, no endless relationship discussions, no tears, and no hysterics, as with one of her classmates in a similar situation. Maybe, as some people thought, Natalia wasn't that emotional. Naturally, it was upsetting that things didn't work out with someone she used to like so much. However, Natalia believed that life wasn't over yet. She focused on studying, self-improvement, and then on her career. Soon after graduating from the university, her father helped her open an advertising agency. He said, "You're on your own now. I'll always help you with advice. If something serious happens, I'll help too. But I'm not going to make all the decisions for you. Who knows how life will turn out? I won't live forever. Learn to get what you want. You're strong, and you have a brilliant mind. You'll manage." And Natalia did manage. She dove headfirst into her new endeavor and almost stayed overnight in the office in the early days. At first, she was afraid that the manager and secretary would mess everything up, fail, lose profitable clients, or the accountant would forget to submit reports on time. Anything could happen. Therefore, at first, Natalia couldn't relax for a minute. But over time, she learned to choose her employees and properly distribute responsibilities. The tiny company, at first, quickly grew and developed, getting more and more orders. Natalia had a strong grip and impeccable business intuition. Frankly, despite all her ambitions, she herself didn't expect such success. Meanwhile, the years went by. Many of Natalia's university friends had long been married and raising children. The rest also had personal life. They were meeting people, falling in love, and breaking up. Only Natalia was no longer involved in any of that. "Natalia, when are we going to have your second wedding? Closer to retirement?" Irma, her faithful friend, would sometimes jest. "I've been divorced twice already and am now actively searching. If not for a husband, then at least for a well-off suitor." "Well, whatever, just someone relatively sane." "I'm perfectly fine," Natalia shrugged. "I don't have time for that. Come on, at least try dating someone, go on some dates. Take after me." "Well, you've told me yourself what kind of specimens you come across on dates. Are they a mix of laughter and tears?" In this regard, Irma had been catastrophically unlucky. The men from dating sites turned out to be nothing like the successful machos who would compliment her online. There were plenty of funny and even downright ridiculous situations during her numerous dates. But it's got to work out eventually. The main thing is to hope for the best. And you, a successful businesswoman, can be picky. We're almost 40, the time's flying by. If I were you, I'd have snatched up some rich businessmen ages ago. You have plenty of wealthy clients. What are you waiting for? You look very nice, by the way. These are purely business acquaintances, Irma. And, besides, almost all of them are married or in relationships. Right, watch yourself, or you'll grow wild. Honestly, even with married men, you can have a fling. You're a single woman. You don't have any obligations to anyone. However, such unpleasant conversations with Natalia usually didn't last long, and the friends switched to other topics. And everyone else had long gotten used to Natalia not even thinking about getting married. She gave up on her personal life and preferred not to discuss it. She looked really good. Her figure remained slender and toned, and her posture was like that of a real lady. Natalia never even thought about any complicated cosmetic procedures, let alone plastic surgery. She had seen enough examples of some acquaintances who, in pursuit of beauty and eternal youth, turned into something like dolls with inflated lips and skin stretched to the limit. As the years passed, Natalia learned to dress with taste, especially since she had the means to buy quality and fashionable clothes. She found a hairstyle that really suited her. She applied makeup very sparingly, which she found to be natural. It was the right type for her face, so she made the most favorable impression on business acquaintances. She wasn't a model, but she was always friendly, dressed tastefully, well-groomed, and had a pleasant voice and affable manners. And as for meeting new people, I can easily do without them, Natalia believed. Happiness for her wasn't just about love. For some reason, Natalia couldn't get the random morning encounter out of her head. What made her remind Ottilio? It was understandable that he was strikingly good-looking and young. She didn't see someone on the street who looked like a photo from a glossy magazine every day. But there was something else about him, a charm that she felt from the very first second, a lovely smile, an open gaze. Even though they only spoke for a few minutes, there was an immediate impression that this guy would never repel, never betray, or never behave meanly. There was no arrogance or self-satisfaction in him, even though, with his appearance, he could have thought too highly of himself. Good thing he randomly came there and won't show up again, Natalia thought. Otherwise, I might have fallen head over heels for him. Irma would have definitely fallen for him. The next morning, Natalia opened her eyes before her alarm clock rang and stretched. It wasn't every day that she woke up in such a cool mood, feeling fully charged. And the dream was indeed wonderful. Well, nothing particularly special. It was just that in a dream, Natalia saw Ottilio again. They were sitting on a bench in a small park near the office center and were talking about something trivial again. What exactly were they talking about? It seemed like they were discussing a film premiere that Natalia had recently attended. But the words weren't very important when she had such a man beside her. The main thing was that he looked straight into her eyes, smiling and enjoying being close by. However, there was no time to muse on this, to remember the pleasant dream, and to lay in bed. The alarm clock rang, reminding the woman that it was time to get up and get ready for the office. Another working day was awaiting her. This day went as usual, and Natalia didn't think about yesterday's minor incident anymore. But in the evening, as she was leaving the office center, she saw Ottilio again. He opened the door of his car, parked almost right at the steps, and stepped out. "Good evening." Suddenly, Natalia became breathless. However, she quickly regained her composure and answered in a calm tone. "Good evening. Are you stopping by the bakery again?" "To be honest, no," Ottilio admitted. "I was just passing by. For some reason, I remembered how we ran into each other here yesterday. I don't know why I decided to stop. And then, suddenly, you appeared. I didn't do it on purpose," Natalia smiled. "The workday ended, so I went outside. Of course, it's just a coincidence." "Yeah, it happens." "Well, have a nice evening." "All the best." "Can I give you a lift?" "Thanks, but I'm driving myself." She approached her car. I see. How do you feel about having a coffee? Natalia really wanted to answer that she didn't mind. However, some instinct prompted a different response. Unfortunately, I already have plans for tonight. That's a pity. What about tomorrow? Probably I'll be busy too. But you're not sure, right? I don't know yet. I'll come back here tomorrow, if you don't mind, at the same time? Okay. Then see you. He didn't linger for long and almost immediately left. Natalia was standing by her car for a while, then seemed to shake off the haunting thoughts and get behind the wheel. On the way home, she changed her mind about many things. At first, she mentally praised herself for not rushing into a date with an almost stranger. She didn't agree immediately to his first request. But then, when she was approaching her place, her mood changed. Now she has already begun to regret that she declined to have a coffee with Otilio today. Why did she answer like that? Did she want to make it clear that she had someone to spend the evening with? And she wasn't interested in talking to Otilio? What was the point of this coquetry? As if she wasn't an adult, self-sufficient woman but a capricious girl trying to raise her price. Nothing would have happened if they had had a cup of coffee in some decent place. They would have talked and gotten to know each other better. She really didn't know anything about Otilio except his name. Surely, he wasn't used to getting refusals. He didn't even ask for her phone number. If he really intended to meet again, he would definitely ask for the number. Natalia was thinking. 100% he won't come tomorrow. Although, maybe, it's for the best. He's a very pleasant guy. But what do we have in common? He's definitely much younger than her. Besides, he's too good-looking. It's better to stay away from such handsome men. Caution never hurts. Natalia couldn't decide the whole evening if she did the right thing or not. Although she hadn't doubted her decisions for a long time, true, they were all not related to her personal life. However, Natalia was worried in vain. At the agreed-upon time, Otilio was already there. He handed her a small, tastefully composed bouquet. She accepted the gift with a smile. It had been a long time since she had received flowers. No, of course, usually, co-workers and business partners give her flowers on special dates and holidays. And her father always gave her favorite coral roses on her birthday. It was nice, but not at all like this. I was worried you'd have other plans again, Otilio said. No, I'm free tonight. Thanks for the bouquet. They walked to a cafe on the next street. They were sitting in a cozy little room. The date didn't last very long. Natalia liked that Otilio wasn't trying to impress her, wasn't pushy, and didn't try to show off. He barely asked about Natalia's life. She liked the leisurely development of their relationship. Although we aren't dating, she interrupted her own dreams. We just got acquainted. It's not clear why he decided to communicate with me. There are plenty of young beauties who would be happy to get closer to such a guy. Well, let's see what happens next. Then they had the other date, then another. They met 2 or 3 times a week. Natalia didn't even notice how a whole month flew by. She already knew quite a bit about Otilio. He graduated from the local university and was born and finished school in a small town 4 hours' drive from the metropolis, where Natalia had lived since birth. After graduation, he stayed in the city and changed several jobs. Now he was working as a manager for a small company, but he didn't complain about being broke. He made quite an impression as a successful young bachelor, went to the gym, and occasionally enjoyed going on a trip. She still wanted to be around Otilio. She felt relaxed, as with an old friend. And he was so kind that there was nothing to find fault with. You know, I feel like we've known each other for 100 years, he once said. He said it quietly, almost in a whisper. They were at the opening of an exhibition by a fashionable artist, with many strangers around. You won't believe it, but I feel the same way, she smiled. Natalia, we need to talk seriously. She immediately felt that this conversation was not going to be about trivialities. Okay. I'm listening. Just not here, okay? It was uncomfortable to have a serious conversation in such an atmosphere. Moreover, the artist himself, standing in front of his own painting, began to talk about one of his paintings. Natalia and Otilio managed to escape from the crowd of art lovers and went to an adjacent empty room. There, on the white walls, were hanging classic landscapes and still lives, a permanent, familiar exhibition. There was nothing bright and attention-grabbing to attract the attention and interest of the public. They stopped there. Finally, near the painting with a winter landscape, Otilio said, "You see, I couldn't make up my mind. Every day I put it off, but..." Natalia became still, feeling that, in the next moment, she was about to hear something very important for both of them. Otilio continued, "When I saw you, I knew right away, we met by the will of fate. At that time, I didn't know anything about you yet. I just saw your eyes and was captivated. I realized that if I passed by, I would never forgive myself. That's why I came back the same day. And when I got to know you better. Honestly, I've had quite a few flings, but they were never serious. I never felt this way about any woman. Natalia, why are you silent? Is this not interesting to you? I'm listening. It's just so unexpected. Yes, for me too. I didn't expect this from myself. Anyway, I want to ask you." Instead of continuing, Otilio lowered his head and fell silent, his cheeks slightly reddened. Natalia held her breath. She naturally guessed what phrase was about to be heard. However, she still couldn't believe it. Meanwhile, Otilio broke the prolonged silence and muttered, "Will you marry me?" She answered in the next moment. But, perhaps, the answer was not what the interlocutor expected. "Otilio, this is impossible, we are too different. You're only 27, and I'm..." "This doesn't matter," he interrupted. "You're just politely looking for a reason to refuse. And in fact, you think I don't treat you. Of course. You're so strong and successful. And I'm just an ordinary guy with no accomplishments. You deserve the coolest man in your circle, smart and successful. But I love you. I can't imagine that we will never be together." Natalia's heart was pounding as if it wanted to jump out. Her secret desire suddenly became a reality. However, outwardly, Natalia did not show her joyful excitement. After all, she knew how to control herself. She gently touched Otilio's shoulder and smiled. "I will think about your proposal. I promise to answer tomorrow. Now let's go back to that room." It's interesting to listen to the artist. The wedding was relatively modest. From her first experience, Natalia had learned well that a luxurious, joyful celebration didn't guarantee a wonderful continuation. She didn't even have the wedding dress. She was wearing just an elegant dress of a light color, not the traditional bridal gown. The newlyweds went to a restaurant with their closest friends and Natalia's father. Otilio's parents did not come and did not even congratulate. As Natalia understood, they had difficult relations with their son. He didn't clarify the reason. She didn't intervene and insist on a meeting. She decided that gradually the relationship with the new relatives would improve. There was no need to rush events. Her own father, just like the last time, did not approve of his daughter's choice. Natalia even suspected that he had quietly collected information about her fiancé in advance. But there was nothing to nitpick about. Her father didn't try to dissuade her, didn't put up any serious objections, and didn't impose any advice. It would be strange to dictate to a mature, independent woman who she should have married and who she shouldn't have. The father only said, "Be careful, although you are smart. I hope you won't lose your head because of love." Natalia also sincerely hoped for this. However, there was no reason to worry. Otilio didn't seem like a womanizer at all. Natalia had come across sad documentary stories on YouTube long before she met her future husband. Once, the first video came up by accident, and then the next ones appeared in the recommendations. At that time, Natalia herself wondered why she spent so much time watching them. It was absolutely not her problem. Why watch the same types of stories about young, handsome men who used and robbed women who trusted them? Natalia sincerely marveled at the trust and naivety of the deceived victims. It seemed elementary to guess that they were dealing with typical womanizers and scammers. And the first signs should have led to thoughts, but women dreamed of love, aimed at family happiness, and wanted to believe in compliments and flattering words. For this, they paid with broken hearts and empty wallets. And later, after the first meetings with Ottilio, Natalia herself sometimes had fleeting thoughts. What if he was one of those seekers of easy money too? What if these blue eyes and this charming smile were just a screen hiding a beginning or, perhaps, an experienced womanizer? There were plenty of them now, judging by the rumors. Natalia soberly assessed herself. She was not a fatal woman, capable of falling in love at first sight. There was also such an age difference. But days went by, and Ottilio did not give her the slightest reason to be suspicious. There were no worrying signs that could have alarmed her. On the contrary, with each passing day, he revealed the best sides of his character. He remained surprisingly nice, attentive, and tactful. There was a huge difference compared to Natalia's first husband. She felt comfortable and calm with Ottilio, although they were only getting to know each other. Maybe they were made for each other after all? And their meeting was predetermined by fate itself. After the wedding, the young husband didn't change at all. He was in love. When the honeymoon in Italy was over, the newlyweds returned home. Ottilio moved in with Natalia. He used to rent a one-bedroom apartment. Now there was, of course, no need for that. He was planning to look for a new job in the near future. I'm ashamed that my wife earns much more. I will definitely find a suitable job and start building a career. I want you to be proud of me. Natalia secretly prepared a nice surprise. She made an arrangement with a friend who owned a construction business, and Ottilio was immediately offered a position in a large company. The position didn't require much effort. He wasn't even responsible for anything, though he had a very decent salary. Such lucky options always come up for good acquaintances and close relatives. Therefore, Ottilio didn't have to run to interviews, and his dream came true effortlessly. Natalia didn't plan to hire her husband at her firm. The employees were used to seeing her as an independent businesswoman, and she didn't want her personal relationships to affect her work. Ottilio was quite satisfied with his new position and remained just as gallant and considerate. Married life was going smoothly. Natalia's girlfriends and acquaintances looked on her with admiring envy. Maybe some of them were green with envy, but after all, nobody can tell what goes on in another person's mind. At least, in words, everyone was very positive. "It's amazing how quiet you are," Irma, who was a witness at the wedding, repeated. "I can't believe you met such a handsome guy. You were already putting a cross on yourself when you suddenly surprised us all. How quickly everything turned around for you. I wish I had that." She sighed dreamily and went on a date with another suitor, whom she found on a dating site. Alas, no date had gone well for her. Natalia, who literally radiated happiness, was now ready to embrace the whole world. She really wanted her friend to finally have some luck. She was even ready to take on the role of a secret matchmaker and gradually look for a match for Irma among her many acquaintances. However, Natalia did not lose hope. Irma might seem frivolous from the outside, but Natalia knew how kind-hearted and good she really was. How she loved creating a cozy home, and how she made wonderful handicrafts. And how she was striving to find someone close. Irma just wasn't lucky with men, that was her karma. Natalia had only recently realized what it meant to have a beloved person by your side, someone who considered her the most beautiful and desired woman in the world. Before, she sincerely believed that such things only happened in novels and movies, and in reality, everything was much more prosaic. Men and women often convinced themselves that they felt the same way as the imaginary, perfect characters. But now Natalia has changed her mind. She liked giving love and tenderness to her partner. She liked receiving affectionate gestures in return. She couldn't even imagine how she used to exist in solitude. Her previous life seemed dull and meaningless. Natalia's main desire was to preserve this happiness for many years. She wanted to plan their joint future, build a new life, and make her husband happy. It was as if she had found her second wind. Her eyes were sparkling, and her cheeks started to have a natural flush. She often found herself smiling without any reason. Even on the road or at work, when there were no special reasons to smile, she seemed to radiate happiness. "You're blossoming," her friends noticed. Natalia didn't refuse compliments. She knew it was true. She was already convinced that the marriage, which might have seemed hasty and thoughtless, turned out to be very successful. And the decision she made back then was the right one. Even if she and Ottilio had been dating much longer, nothing would have changed, and she would have made the same choice. In the meantime, time was flying by unnoticed. They got married at the end of May, and now it was already past mid-September. One evening, Natalia had an idea to surprise Ottilio again. It wouldn't be bad to buy a tour to some warm countries in October when it got cold and rainy. Why not go to a place with a bright, sunny summer? It was great that they could easily afford it. She had just started looking for a suitable travel tour on the company's website when Ottilio returned home. Quietly, stepping on the soft carpet, he approached his wife, who was settled with a laptop on her knees, leaned over, and affectionately rubbed his cheek against hers. "Hey, are you early today?" "Yes. I decided to prepare a delicious dinner for you. Everything is ready. You are not only a beautiful and smart girl, but also a super hostess." He gently kissed her. "Damn, I don't want to be apart from you." "Apart? What do you mean?" Natalia was surprised. A chill ran down her spine. Ottilio laughed. "I'm sorry, I just blurted out nonsense. To temporarily part, of course. For a week, I'm about to go on a business trip." "That's it." False alarm. Natalia breathed a sigh of relief, but she was already scared. What silly thoughts can come to mind? It's just that she didn't want to be separated from her husband for a week either. "Why do you have a business trip out of sudden?" she asked. "I didn't expect it either. Some fancy management courses are being held. For some reason, the CEO decided I should go there. Consider it a nice bonus. It's a good season after all. It's wonderful there right now." Natalia smiled. Ottilio said, "I think they just had nobody else to go there. The others are too busy and valuable employees, and I'm not much use yet." "Oh, stop with this nonsense. You'll gain experience and become the most valuable one. You're smart. So, don't fret. Let's go have dinner instead. And we'll have to pack your suitcase in advance." "When's your flight?" "Already on Thursday," he sighed. Barely having seen her husband off at the airport, Natalia began to miss him. She was surprised at herself, a businesswoman, a tough business lady, strong and calculating, pining for her partner like some sentimental lady. After all, she was alone not so long ago. She just didn't feel that loneliness. Nobody was needed. And now? On weekdays, she spent little time together with her husband since both of them worked. But still, Ottilio's presence became a necessity. Probably Natalia lived alone for too long, and that's why she valued every minute of communication now. Ottilio missed her too. He constantly said it during their frequent phone conversations. "Listen, what if I fly over to join you at the beach?" Natalia suggested. "It wouldn't be a problem at all. I'll get a ticket, quickly get ready, and hop on the plane. We could even swim together. The water is still warm, and the weather is great. I checked the forecast online. They can manage without me at work for a while. It's just a short trip. What do you think of that?" Natalia thought Ottilio would be pleased. However, she was mistaken. He replied, "That would be great, of course. But I'm afraid I won't be able to relax properly. I'll be at those silly courses from morning to night. They have some crazy business trainers there. I didn't even have a minute to rest. They want to cram a month-long program into a week. Plus, I'll have to take an exam to get a certificate. They're dragging us around like puppets. One minute we have stupid assignments, the next minute we're being tested. It was easier studying at the university. I've already regretted agreeing to go 100 times. It only seems like a seminar, but it's pure torture. I returned to the room late at night. I've only managed to get to the sea once on the first day. We won't even see each other properly. His voice really did sound tired. Otilio used to complain that the workload at the courses was huge. Okay, if that's what you want, Natalia agreed. Aren't you upset? I miss you a lot. What's the point of wasting your energy and time on a trip? Especially since I'll be back soon. We just have to wait a little bit. Natalia smiled. Of course, I'm not upset. I'm counting the hours and minutes until you return. Kisses to you, my sunshine. I really want to be home soon. I've been seeing you in my dreams every night. Everything was settled. However, the next day, Natalia started thinking about this idea one more time. Even though there were only 3 days left until the desired meeting, why not bring it closer if there was an opportunity? She imagined how she would look at the sunrise on the beach, walk around the shops, or go to a cafe on the promenade together with Otilio. In any case, they would find the time so they could sleep and rest at home. Otilio just didn't want his wife to fuss and change her schedule because of a short trip. He was such a caring and devoted husband. So Natalia made a decision. If she was enthusiastic about an idea, there was no doubt that the plan would be realized. She didn't bother warning Otilio in advance. She wanted to surprise her husband again. And closer to the evening, Natalia went to the hotel lobby, where, as she knew, the course attendees were staying. She approached the counter and met a young, fair-haired girl there. Hello, I've come to see Otilio Medina. He's staying here. I don't know the room number, but he mentioned his room is on the 4th floor. Welcome. The girl behind the counter greeted cheerfully. Please call him. You see, I want to surprise my husband. He doesn't know I've come to visit him. He's studying at his courses all day, so he's probably not in the room yet. Can you give me the key? Here, check our marriage certificate. Natalia handed her passport over the counter, with the page open showing the marriage stamp. I'm sorry, I can't give the key without the resident's consent. Please arrange it with him yourself. He definitely won't mind, Natalia smirked. Still, I can't do it that way. You're not doing anything wrong. The girl grabbed the phone and tried to call someone, but there was no answer. It was obvious that she had just started working here, literally in the first few days. She tried very hard to keep up, and at the same time, she felt insecure. Therefore, Natalia managed to achieve what she wanted without much effort. She was good at persuading and convincing people. Pretty soon, Natalia found herself in a room on the 4th floor. She put the suitcase in the corner and sat on the edge of the wide bed, looking around. The room was furnished without excess, but stylishly. Puffy white clouds were slowly drifting by outside the window. Natalia remembered her childhood visits to the sea. She remembered the clear blue sky, the sunny beach, the warm, gentle waves, the sand castles, and the cries of seagulls. Without realizing it, she felt her eyelids droop, overcome by a sweet tiredness. She wanted to lie down for just 5 minutes, then get up and hang her clothes in the closet, but instead, she fell fast asleep. Natalia dreamed of traveling to the sea in her childhood. Those times when every summer day was filled with carefree joys and a sense of magical wonders. She woke up in complete darkness. It seemed that the real night had long since fallen. Natalia was awakened by a sound clearly heard in the silence. Someone was turning the key in the door. After the door opened, someone entered the room. Natalia guessed that there were 2 of them, a man and a woman. She could hear them taking off their shoes. The woman threw something on the nightstand, probably her bag. They wouldn't notice Natalia, it was too dark. Moreover, they didn't expect anyone else to be here besides them. Natalia quickly assessed the situation, froze on the bed, and held her breath. Not making a single sound to give away her presence, she strained to listen to their voices. Finally, "We're home," Otilio said. "Are you tired?" The woman replied coquettishly. "We had such a great time at the restaurant. I could dance all night with you, only with you." "I would rather do something else at night," Otilio chuckled. "Of course. The main thing is that your old wife is far away. You know how tired I am of hiding from her." "I'm tired of it too, baby. But what can we do? We have to endure a little longer." "How much longer do we have to wait?" The stranger pouted. "You've been putting up with her for too long already." "Well, she's not as naive as you think she is. And why don't we turn on the light?" "There's no need to turn it on," the woman replied. "We're fine like this." Natalia noticed some movement at the far end of the room. Her eyes had adjusted somewhat to the darkness, and she managed to make out that the stranger had come close to Otilio, placing her hands on his shoulders. She heard them start kissing, and Natalia fought back a strong desire to jump up from the bed and announce her presence. However, she refrained from doing so and continued to listen intently to their conversation. "All right," Otilio said after a pause. "It'll be even better when I get access to her bank accounts." "I hope that happens soon," the woman murmured seductively. "It's all going so slowly. A new car and some petty things are nice, but not enough. I hope she'll have a nice surprise for me in a couple of months. She loves doing that. Maybe she'll transfer the apartment to my name. I know she has another one downtown. The area isn't very large, but it'll be enough for us. Just don't break up with me, or..." "Oh, sweetheart. I'll never do that. You can count on me." After these words, they resumed kissing. "You're so clever. You showed me such a rich woman. What would I do without you? It's just a pity we don't see each other often. Well, at least your business trip worked out for you. My wife was planning to fly over here yesterday. I barely managed to talk her out of it. She was so eager to see me, poor old lady." They both burst into laughter. Natalia couldn't bear to listen any more. Besides, the overall picture was already clear. She remembered that she had seen a light switch not far from the bed. She reached out carefully, running her palm along the wall. A bright electric light flashed on, and the woman squealed in surprise. Otilio and the woman became still, blinded by the light that flooded the entire room. "Good evening," Natalia calmly said. What are you doing here?" Otilio stammered slightly. "I just missed you and decided to come." "But you don't miss me much, do you? Or am I making things up?" "It's not what you think." He uttered such a stupid phrase out of habit. Hardly anyone in their right mind could seriously expect that excuses would be accepted. "At least be a man now." Natalia snapped. "You got caught. What's the point of lying again?" He bit his lip and looked at his wife with disgust, who, with her unexpected appearance, had ruined all his rosy plans. Meanwhile, Natalia scrutinized the rival. She was a girl of about 23 to 25, quite pretty. But overall, nothing special. Just one of many stereotypical girls who, from a young age, strive for a single standard, drawn-on eyebrows, plumped-up lips, identical hairstyles. Perhaps Natalia wouldn't have been so upset if the rival had been a rare beauty, the kind that any man would fall head over heels for. But this wasn't the case at all. It turned out that Otilio simply lacked good taste and discernment. The girl's face seemed vaguely familiar to Natalia. Although it was so typical, it was difficult to tell where and when they had seen each other. Or was it just a coincidence among many, almost identical faces? And yet Natalia remembered. 2 or 3 years ago, she fired a young assistant accountant from her firm she had worked for a very short time. It turned out that she was quietly taking money from her colleagues. She took a little cash from the handbags carelessly left in the offices. Nothing had ever gone missing from the office before. That's why no one even thought that someone could steal the money. The amounts that disappeared were insignificant, not enough to notice immediately. It was only later that a person discovered that there had been a different amount in their wallet before. How could the money have disappeared? Maybe they had just spent more at the store than they thought. However, such cases gradually became more frequent. And then one day, the thief was caught red-handed. She was crying and begging bitterly, and Natalia decided not to make a fuss. She thought the girl was sincerely repentant and would never do such a thing again. She simply fired her to boost the staff's mood after the unpleasant incident. Natalia gave a symbolic bonus to those affected and arranged a coffee party with cakes for everyone in the office. The problem was quickly forgotten. Now Natalia understood that, back then, she had been overly indulgent towards the thief. What was the name of that girl? Sylvia, Sarah, or Zoraida? Did you recognize me, Natalia? She giggled and didn't get the least bit flustered. It's been a long time since we've met. Well, it'd probably be best if we didn't meet again. But you came here without an invitation yourself. By the way, I came to my lawful husband, and as for you. And I am the love of his life. Isn't that right, dear? Zoraida pressed herself against Otilio again and stared at Natalia provocatively. He promised to deceive you like a poor girl. Too bad it didn't work out. But I'm still happy. I spoiled your mood, that's good enough for me. So, you decided to get revenge for the time when I felt sorry for you? For not coming to the police and saying you're a thief? Think what you want, I don't care. I did dream of playing a trick on you. You had too high an opinion of yourself. Who do you think you are? A business lady? All so proper, so noble. But you don't have a husband or a lover yourself. Who needs you with such an appearance? And you're about to be retired. Then I met Otilio. We've been dating for a year now. We came up with an awesome plan together. Otilio is such a handsome man, anyone would fall for him. Everyone will shower him with money as much as he wants, and Otilio and I love money, we never have enough. We thought it all through. Natalia wanted to say a lot of things to the brazen girl, but she didn't want to stoop to her level. She turned to Otilio, who had settled into the armchair in the middle of the room. Aren't you going to explain anything to me? Are you waiting for an apology? He grunted gloomily. Maybe I should get down on my knees? His flawlessly beautiful face, with its symmetrical features, didn't look as attractive anymore. He had a harsh smirk, his blue eyes were cold and immobile, as if made of glass. He seemed like a different person. Not the one Natalia had grown used to calling her husband. He wasn't tactful and charming anymore. How could she have been so wrong? Many people believed that Natalia was excellent at understanding people. But this time she had missed the mark. The actor turned out to be wonderful, flawlessly playing the main role without a single false note or mistake. And only now did he take off the mask that had played the entire part. After all, there was nothing left to lose now. What was the point of pretending further? Did you really believe I fell in love at first sight? Smirked Otilio. Have you seen yourself in the mirror? Okay, there's really nothing more for us to talk about, Natalia replied. She picked up her suitcase, found and put on her shoes left by the bed, and left the room. Otilio asked her a mocking question. Will we divorce? And then Zoraida giggled. There was a different girl on the ground floor behind the reception desk, not the new employee who had allowed Natalia to go up to her husband's room. Perhaps if there had been another girl in her place, this recent scandal wouldn't have happened, and Otilio and his lover wouldn't have been caught red-handed. The cheater could have wriggled out with his resourcefulness, and Natalia would have continued to consider him a faithful and loyal husband. I wonder how long the carefully thought-out performance would have lasted. Natalia, with an inscrutable face, walked past the reception desk, and the girl didn't even dare ask the guest where she was going with a suitcase at night. The doors were unlocked, so Natalia easily made her way outside. She took a deep breath of the cool night air, descended from the hotel's porch, and looked at her watch. It turned out that it wasn't too late yet. It seemed to Natalia as if it were deep into the night right now, and a whole eternity had passed from the moment she, content and happy, stepped into her husband's room. Actually, not long ago, midnight had passed. In the resort town, not everyone was sleeping. One could hear lively voices on the street, colorful lanterns were lit, and through the glass wall of a nearby cafe, muffled sounds of cheerful music were heard. People were having fun, and, of course, nobody cared about someone else's drama. Natalia was walking slowly along the sidewalk. Now that nobody was watching her, she could relax, not trying to look like an unyielding iron lady. She was about to burst into tears at any moment. She was still trying to think coldly and reasonably, convinced herself that what happened in the room was for the best. It was good that the circumstances turned out this way, and not much time had passed since the wedding. She hadn't had the time to completely get attached to Ottilio yet. He hadn't managed to fully capture her. After all, there were many cases when men deceived women, and everything ended much worse. She stopped under a street lamp and blocked the bank card to which Ottilio had access. He didn't ask her for anything. Natalia herself once gave him the password over the phone. Ottilio was buying something for the house then, and there wasn't enough money on his card. And then she didn't change the password. She wasn't sorry for anything about her beloved husband. The amount on that account was not very significant, so Natalia didn't control the expenses. However, now it was necessary to urgently put an end to this before Ottilio could use her money. Then she set off again. She walked, not realizing where to go. Perhaps she needed to check the flight schedule, find a suitable flight, and get to the airport. But Natalia was not yet able to be among strangers. It seemed to her that she simply would not be able to behave normally. Her condition would be immediately obvious. For someone in a difficult situation, it becomes easier to be near other people. For others, it's easier to huddle in a corner and hide, just so that no one sees or interrogates them. Natalia instinctively turned towards the sea. She felt that right there, on the deserted late-night shore, she would find a suitable place to hide and be alone with herself. Somehow survive the blow that fate had so unexpectedly struck from around the corner. I mean, not fate, of course, but a specific person. She kept moving away from the hotel as far as possible from the others' revelry. Gravel rustled under her feet, and the sea dozed very close, full of mysteries and secrets, completely unlike the daytime, illuminated by the southern sun, bustling and cheerful. Natalia sat down right on the gravel near the water's edge. She didn't want to rush anywhere anymore. Perhaps the night sea would carry away the disappointment and sadness and help throw out the fatal mistake from her heart that she made. One should never vow and never think that they see people through. Natalia again remembered how she had pitied Zoraida, who had pretended to be so miserable back then. Oh, that really is the case. No good deed goes unpunished. Life has changed, everything is different around us, but, in fact, old truths don't disappear anywhere because human nature remains the same. The meaning of life doesn't change. A little cunning bastard dreamed of revenge for someone else's generosity, hid, waited for quite a long time, and then struck in secret. So, supposedly, the accidental meeting on the stairs was planned in detail beforehand? The creamy cake for Auntie, the amusing little friendly collisions, all of these were planned down to the minute. Such precision. Natalia had seen a similar scene in one series, only the main character was holding a bag of oranges, not a cake. How late she remembered this episode. She couldn't change anything anymore. They secretly studied Natalia's schedule, then followed her. Probably, they succeeded in pulling it off not on the first try. They tried different options to create a convincing illusion. And what about Natalie? How could she suddenly become so naive and trusting as to believe in a happy coincidence? But she wanted to believe. She wanted to trust the clear blue eyes and the charming, slightly shy smile, to take compliments and confessions at face value, and to believe that fate brought them together. Now she would never trust anyone again. Today's event finally put a thick cross on her personal life, and it was the right moment. In 3 years, she would turn 40. A few hours ago, Natalia thought of herself as desired and loved, and now... She burst into tears, burying her face in her knees. She imagined the cynical couple laughing at her naivety, discussing the next steps in fooling the successful business lady who turned out to be naive, like a freshman. What would her friends, acquaintances, business partners, and employees say? Would they sympathize, pity, secretly laugh, and gossip behind her back? She couldn't hide a scandalous divorce. How would her father react to this? After all, he warned her, just like the first time. Why didn't she think, didn't listen, although he clearly hinted that the groom was not to his liking? And the father was definitely good at reading people, and not a single piece of his advice had been wrong. And what awaited her next? After all, the father wouldn't live forever. How scary was it to be completely alone without even one close person near? She so wanted to be a little girl again, not to make decisions and be strong. Tears streamed down her cheeks and didn't stop. Natalia couldn't even remember when she last cried. Probably in her childhood. And now she felt completely broken, having lost all hope and faith in the future. What was she living for and striving for? What was the point? There was no happiness and no prospect of it anymore. No one saw her now on this empty beach, so she could cry her heart out. "Hey, what's wrong?" She heard a low male voice. Natalia jumped. She was so absorbed in her emotions that she didn't even notice when the late beach visitor approached. But she could have heard the sound of steps on the gravel. "What's wrong?" he repeated. "Has someone offended you?" She really didn't want to cry in front of a stranger. Nobody should have been around when she was so miserable, weak, and pitiful. Trying her hardest to make her voice somewhat normal, Natalia said, "No, nothing serious, everything is fine." Really? Perhaps she imagined it, but judging by the tone, the stranger smiled. Of course, it was ridiculous for her to pretend that everything was fine. "Really? Thanks for coming over, but..." "Natalia? How do you know me?" She sniffled. "Don't you recognize me?" The man turned on the flashlight on his phone. "Have I changed so much?" She was silent, staring at his face and, at the same time, wiping her eyes. "I was sitting in the second row at the last desk," he reminded her. Indeed, he had changed a lot. Without his hint, she would hardly have recognized her former classmate, with whom she danced her only dance at the prom. The skinny, angular guy turned into a broad-shouldered man with a confident bearing and seemed to have grown taller. "Ignacio?" "Finally. I knew it was you right away. Your voice sounded familiar. What are you doing here? What's wrong?" He moved the suitcase aside, sat down next to her shoulder to shoulder. "You know, everyone has problems sometimes," she vaguely replied. "Were you kicked out of your hotel for bad behavior?" "Very funny." "Sorry, that was a stupid joke. I'm just so glad to see you. We haven't seen each other in so many years. Never since graduation. I came to a class reunion a couple of times, then moved to another city. I really didn't want to go to school," Natalia admitted. "Our classmates weren't very friendly." "That's right. So, what's the problem?" To be honest, because of the unexpected meeting, Natalia was distracted from her sorrow. She slowly stopped crying, but the problem was still there. Just personal troubles. It happens to everyone. "Can I get to know more details?" "I caught my husband with his mistress." Actually, why should she have hidden it from Ignacio? After all, he has been living in another city for a long time. He was never a gossip, and Natalia wanted to share with someone. Sometimes people open their hearts to complete strangers on trains and share very intimate secrets with them because they will never see these people again. "It's a tough situation, but not fatal," responded Ignacio. "Are you going to get a divorce?" She sighed. "Probably. I mean, yes, of course. That's the right thing to do. But don't get too upset about it. You're smart, you can handle anything. Divorce is not such a disaster. Although I don't have any particularly hard experience, my wife and I parted ways peacefully, without any tragedies, a long time ago. We didn't have children, so we divided the property honestly and didn't become enemies. Some people are lucky, Natalia replied. If anything, you'll consult me. Well, there, you smiled. By the way, are we going to sit on the beach all night? Me? I'm going to the airport now. I'll fly home on the next flight. I need to check the schedule. She reached for her phone, but she couldn't even turn it on. The battery had completely discharged. Wait, don't rush. Where are you going to be in this state? Ignacio took out a handkerchief from his pocket and gently wiped Natalia's still wet face from tears as if she were a little child. Stay overnight at my place, and in the morning, I'll take you to the airport. Why? I'll wait right there. It's much better in a cozy home. I'm staying nearby in a small family hotel. I come here almost every year. The owners have become almost like family. I just arrived not long ago, put my things inside, and went to the sea. And then I met you. He stood up. So, shall we go? It's a bit uncomfortable, Natalia mumbled embarrassedly. It's uncomfortable to sleep on the ceiling, but it's very comfortable in a normal bed. You need to rest. I'm not tired at all, you shouldn't worry about me. Let's go. There's no need to discuss it. I remember how you helped me with the history exam. Are you serious? Of course, he extended his hand to help her up, easily picking up the suitcase. The two-story brick building of the guest house where Ignacio was staying was indeed nearby. Everything was homey and calm there. There were no designer interiors or modern gadgets. But Natalia didn't need that right now. The hostess, a charming middle-aged woman, was still awake and greeted the new guest warmly. We have a vacant room, you'll like it. Only when Natalia found herself in a cozy room on the second floor and sat down on the bed did she realize how tired she was and how much she wanted to eat. She hadn't had anything to eat or drink for many hours. The hostess brought homemade pies and fig jam. The electric kettle quickly boiled, and aromatic coffee was steaming in the cups, while Natalia and Ignacio were chatting amiably about their long-ago school days. They remembered the teachers, the school plays, and the funny incidents. Natalia caught herself thinking that the humiliating scene that had unfolded in the other hotel had receded into the background, as if covered by a mist. Of course, it was impossible to completely forget that scene so soon. However, it no longer seemed so catastrophic. If Natalia had remained alone with her gloomy thoughts, everything would have been different. But now, opposite her, there was Ignacio. He had changed a lot and became so manly and strong. Nevertheless, he remained the same Ignacio who copied Natalia's English homework and helped her climb a snowy hill during a gym class. Yes, there were such times. They stopped reminiscing and started talking about the present. It turned out that 3 years ago, Ignacio had returned to his hometown, transferred his business there, and opened his own cafe, planning to expand. Amazing, we haven't crossed paths in 3 years. Although nothing surprising, you can live in the same neighborhood in a big city for 10 years and never meet again. That's true, Natalia agreed. I'm so glad I came back. After all, your hometown always pulls you back. My parents are elderly, and my mother had health problems. So, I had no choice but to return. But now everything has worked out, and the business is thriving. Even better than before. And how about you? You haven't told me anything about yourself. Natalia only wanted to share the story of her company, but it was as if some other woman, cautious and prudent, spoke instead of her. I live modestly, like most people. I sit in the office, shuffle papers, and make reports. My salary is small, but it's enough for me. I never became a leader. And overall, nothing remarkable. It's okay, Ignacio said carelessly. But you've become such a beauty. Are you kidding? Why would I do that? You really look great. I've always liked you, ever since middle school. Only I was a shy fool back then and was afraid to confess my feelings. Are you making this up to boost my self-esteem? Not at all. In the morning, Ignacio knocked on Natalia's door and asked, "Still not having second thoughts about leaving? Maybe you'll stay for a few more days? Then we'll return together." "No," Natalia replied. "It's time for me to go home, and I thank you so much for your support. I can't imagine what I would have done without you." "No problem. Then let's have breakfast together, and I'll take you to the airport." Returning home, taking a shower, and changing clothes, Natalia immediately went to work. It was a great way for her to distract herself. Naturally, the echoes of the scandal still haunted her. However, she had recovered from the blow. It was time to stop feeling sorry for herself and worrying in vain. One day was enough, life goes on. She was even lucky that the exposure happened so soon. It was an excellent lesson to never trust men again. So, Natalia didn't even tell Ignacio, whom she thought she could trust completely, that she was financially abundant. After being hurt once, a person becomes more careful. It was better not to have a reason to think that every man giving compliments and looking with loving eyes was targeting your bank account and apartment in the center of town. Now, her top priority was only business relationships. Although Natalia would be very happy to meet with Ignacio again in a friendly way, let him just think that Natalia was an ordinary gray mouse. It's better not to take risks anymore. There was no need to leave herself a reason to doubt. The next day, Natalia packed all of her husband's belongings. Her only desire was to get rid of them as soon as possible. However, Otilio didn't call, maintaining a pause. Maybe he was carefree and enjoying the last warm days with his lover, laughing at the hotel scene. Natalia wasn't worried about him or his plans anymore. Fortunately, she knew how to erase some people from her life. Whoever failed once would fail again. She applied this business principle to her personal life as well. She was rarely let down, so she remembered every case vividly. And in family relationships, she couldn't forgive blatant deceit and betrayal. Natalia told Irma and Ignacio about Otilio's betrayal, but Ignacio was only aware of the fact of the infidelity without details. However, Natalia told Irma all the details, and it just turned out that way. Her friend popped in that evening to share another of her misadventures. The cool, sporty bachelor from the dating site turned out to be a married, unemployed, fat, and bald man with sweaty hands. What kind of men are there nowadays? Irma exclaimed, taking a couple of sips of sweet coffee with cream. And he even started making advances almost from the first minute. He was about to harass me, a loser. I barely managed to get rid of him. You're the lucky one, Natalia. Your husband is perfect. He's handsome, educated, and decent. He was the only one like that in the whole city, and he's yours. Well, at least I can be happy for you. You deserve such happiness. There's no reason to be happy anymore, Irma, Natalia sighed. The wonderful prince turned out to be a complete scoundrel. The fairy tale is over. What are you saying? Did you have a fight? It's probably about nothing. Make up with him, you won't get rid of him. He loves you so much. It turned out he doesn't. Stop making things up. Are you jealous? It's not surprising, women immediately notice him. But he only cares about you. I saw you together. Come on, don't stress yourself out. I don't. And Natalia laid out all the details, and her friend was in shock. Damn, this is how you lose your last bit of faith in humanity. What a bastard. And I was so happy for you. I thought at least someone got lucky. Oh, dear, will we both grow old without anyone needing us? I'm just an ordinary woman. But it's a pity for you, you're smart and successful. There's no justice in the world, and there never was. There are simply no miracles in the world. And you remain so calm. How did you manage to hold back in the hotel room? If I were in your place, I don't know what I would have done. But they would have remembered it for the rest of their lives, that's for sure. What kind of generation is this that has grown up? They haven't become adults yet, and they're already deceiving people at every step. He's such a scam artist. They all are. That evening, they were sharing damning speeches against men for a very long time. So much offense and resentment had accumulated that it was simply unreal to express them all in such a short time. Irma went through all her romantic disappointments and losses. Maybe she thought it would make it easier for her friend. She wasn't the only one who suffered. Or, more likely, Irma was already unable to stop. It was almost 2 weeks after Natalia returned. There was still no word from her wayward husband, although he should have returned long ago. He didn't dare poke his nose into the apartment, and Natalia didn't bother to find out if he had shown up for work. She didn't even want to pronounce his name an extra time. But one day, she saw his name on the phone screen. "Natalia, it's me." "I know," she replied coldly. "I was afraid you would put me on your blacklist." "Not yet." "Is that all you're interested in?" "No, of course not. You see, I'm very ashamed. I'm incredibly ashamed. That's why I didn't dare to call you for so long. I'm guilty, and I don't deserve forgiveness. But at least, listen to me. Better tell me the address. I'll send your things by courier. Everything is already packed. I behaved like a swine. I drank too much then, and I didn't understand what I was saying. You immediately believed that girl, and that's why I got mad. I accidentally ran into her in the evening. We get acquainted here, but superficially. I didn't even remember her name. She approached me herself at the restaurant. I didn't know she worked for you, I swear. She just used me. You can make up stories as much as you like, but it's useless. Natalia, wait. You can't just destroy everything like this. You've already destroyed everything. I'll file for divorce myself, you don't need to worry. I hope you don't have any material claims against me." "What claims?" "I want to come back to you and be together again. Forgive me. This won't happen again. I feel so bad without you." His voice trembled. What an actor. Natalia thought, but said aloud. "I'm sorry, I don't have time. By the way, you can keep the new car with a clear conscience. Consider it a payment for your services. You tried so hard and pretended to be a loving husband. In general, I advise you to change your profession. You'll find other candidates for my place. Just let them know your rates up front. It will be fair. Why are you talking like this with me? Tell me the address. I'll send the things with a courier," Natalia said, ending the conversation. As soon as she turned her attention to the computer screen, the phone rang again. However, it wasn't Otilio. "Hi, how are you feeling?" "Ignacio?" "Yes, you saved my number, didn't you?" Natalia actually didn't save the number, so the caller remained unknown for now. She didn't do it immediately, and then she didn't want to return to the events of the night. Anyway, she would have recognized him by his voice. She didn't go into details, she just said, "Nice to hear from you. Are you still at sea, or have you already returned?" "I returned today. It's time for work. Do you want to meet closer to the evening or tomorrow?" "In general, whenever you can." "I don't know." "Well, think about it. If you decide to meet, call me. Is everything okay with you?" "I'm fine." "That's great. See you." Natalia put the phone aside again. The conversation with Ignacio was pleasant, but something was disturbing her. Of course, that could mean that he didn't mind chatting with his former classmate. They had a nice time together, reminiscing about their childhood and youth. On the other hand, Ignacio had hinted at certain feelings on his part, although he just remembered his school crush. Or maybe he even fibbed out of kindness to cheer up his former classmate loser. Anyway, now was not the time to think about personal relationships. She had just broken up with the man who seemed strong, reliable, and happy. A couple of days later, Natalia did call Ignacio herself, and they did see each other soon after. Moreover, not somewhere, but in his cafe. Natalia rarely visited that area, and the name was unfamiliar to her. There were many places in the city of millions where one could have a good cup of coffee and a snack. Literally, at every step, one could easily stumble upon something new. They were sitting in a stylish room where quiet music was playing. Ignacio put a craft gift bag on the table. "This is for you." Natalia looked inside and pulled out a small picture in a light frame. She looked at it and was instantly shifted to the seashore. It seemed that a transparent wave was about to spill over fantastically beautiful flowers scattered on the wet sand. Above the waves, the pearl clouds were constantly floating. There was a wonderful harmony on this coast. And all this on a small rectangle of primed cardboard. Literally, she didn't want to take her eyes off the picture. "What a beauty!" Natalia exclaimed sincerely. "This is a local artist who is very talented. I ordered several paintings from him for the cafe. It's great to decorate the interior with such unusual works. It's a mix of realism and fantasy. Yes, it will be wonderful, I think." "Listen, Natalia, I have a proposal for you," Ignacio suddenly said. "Why are you working in some dusty office for peanuts? You must be bored and have no prospects." "Well, in general, yes. Come work for me, I'm serious." "As a waitress?" Natalia smiled. "Not at all. There will be more interesting work. You have an economics degree. I know where you applied after school. Let's develop a business together. What do you say?" Natalia just wanted to say that she had her own business, but just in time she thought better of it. Let the invented legend remain. She very much wanted to believe that at least Ignacio was talking to her for her own sake, not out of selfish motives. "I'll think about it," she nodded. "But I'm unlikely to decide. I'm used to sitting quietly without any ambitions." "We'll see about that," Ignacio replied. They chatted a bit more, finished their coffee, and went home. Natalia didn't come to the meeting in her own car, but took a taxi instead. Ignacio gave her a lift home to the address she gave him. It was an ordinary 9-story panel building in a not very prestigious area. Natalia said goodbye, entered the code, and went into the entrance. She took the elevator to the 3rd floor and rang the bell of one of the apartments. Irma was at home. "Look who is here. Come right to the table. I've just made a cake with boiled condensed milk for the last time, then I'll switch to healthy eating." "Thank you, I'm not angry. I've just been in a cafe. Will you at least have some coffee?" In the kitchen, pouring coffee into cups and, finally, cutting a tempting cake, Irma looked closely at her friend. "Why are your eyes shining like that? And you've just been in a cafe? With whom, I wonder? Could it be? Oh, don't tell me you've made up with your prince. Have you really forgiven him?" "No, of course not. Irma, he has nothing to do with it at all." The days passed one after another. The golden autumn lingered this year, and with each passing day, the pain from the collapse of the relationship with Otilio gradually faded away. Why had she rushed to tie her life to a little-known guy whom she practically knew nothing about? What was it? A premonition? A temporary disturbance of the mind? Desperate desire to create a family in time? Or just a natural desire to find the one, to believe she was attractive? Now Natalia remembered with a shudder certain moments of the short marriage. At that time, it seemed to her that her husband was sincerely in love, but in reality, he cynically used her, making long-term plans with his mistress. How lucky it was that Otilio acted deliberately. He calculated every step, understanding that his wife, though in love with all her heart, was certainly not stupid. Apparently, he thought to completely subdue her first and then carry out his grandiose plans. Fortunately, the painful memories visited Natalia less and less often. Firstly, there were too many things to do at the firm, and there was no time for despair. And secondly, Ignacio had firmly entered her life and occupied her thoughts. Her ex-husband's packed things were still in the hallway. He still hadn't decided to tell her where he was living now. Natalia still sent him an SMS reminder about the address. However, Otilio didn't reply. It annoyed Natalia and hindered her from finally letting go of the past. She couldn't just throw someone else's property in the trash. In principle, another woman would most likely have done just that. But Natalia couldn't. She could have sent the things to the office where Otilio worked. Natalia contacted a businessman friend she had once asked to hire her husband. But there was another incident. Otilio managed to mess up a project right after returning, and the owner of the company gave him a talking to. He threatened to fire him next time. Instead of apologizing again, Otilio quit on his own and sailed off in an unknown direction, holding his head high and slamming the door loudly. That's it. A person simply disappeared without a trace. Natalia was already afraid that the divorce proceedings would drag on and was going to deal with the formalities in earnest. But, as it turned out in November, the prodigal husband did not disappear completely. Once Ignacio arranged to pick up Natalia, her innocent deception had already been exposed by then. Or rather, she had confessed herself, having convinced herself that Ignacio had no financial interest. They laughed together at her fears and precautions. This time, when Natalia was leaving the entrance, she noticed a familiar slim silhouette in the courtyard. Otilio was standing in a picturesque pose with a bouquet of crimson roses in his hands. "I am so glad to see you again. Let's forget that nightmare. Let's start all over again." She saw the same charming gaze of blue eyes, an impeccably beautiful face, and sensual lips, but nothing stirred her soul. "Hello, Otilio. What happened? Did you run out of money?" He looked at her reproachfully. "How can you say such a thing? I missed you so much, I couldn't find peace. You know, I sometimes secretly watched you near your house or office, but you didn't notice me. Can't you forgive someone for one single mistake? I will file for divorce soon. By the way, I don't advise you to delay the process. We will part peacefully and without unnecessary gossip. How can you be so heartless?" He touched Natalia's elbow and tried to pull her towards him, but she abruptly pulled away. Ignacio went out of the car parked deep in the courtyard and quickly approached the entrance. "What is going on here?" Otilio looked him up and down, comparing their heights and sizes. It was clear that it wasn't worth getting involved in a fight. "Ah, that's how it is. I already have a substitute. Quick." The game was lost. He angrily threw the useless bouquet right onto the road, theatrically exclaiming, "Well, good luck. Be happy if you can. And you will now come up to my apartment with us," Natalia interrupted, "and finally, take your things, 2 suitcases and a bag." "Who cares?" Otilio muttered, losing all his romantic appearance. "I'll find someone else. You are not the only successful woman." This, in fact, concluded the dramatic part of the story. And after that, everything wasn't dramatic at all, but positive. More than 2 years have passed since that night at the hotel. Natalia and Ignacio got married and lived happily. Half a year ago, twins were born in the family. Natalia was able to handle everything. She took care of the babies, and the business was still going successfully. After all, her husband was always ready to help. Of course, people were shocked that the modest Natalia got married again, already for the 3rd time. But gradually, everyone got used to it. Moreover, the 3rd attempt turned out to be exceptionally successful. Natalia's father immediately accepted the new son-in-law, saying to his daughter, "He's a good man. How glad I am that you have finally learned to understand people." And what about the other characters in our story? Irma hasn't visited dating sites for a long time. She even deleted her profiles there. At her friend's wedding, she met a cute and successful bachelor, Ignacio's friend. Perhaps another wedding was not far off. As for Otilio, he soon quarreled and broke up with his enterprising girlfriend, Zoraida. She got involved in some information business, but her affairs went downhill, and Zoraida had to run away from the city to hide from deceived clients. Otilio changed several places of work, not staying long anywhere. Then he got a job as a sales consultant in a shop for elite gifts. There, he really fit in and looked like a gift himself. He found what he was looking for there. Or rather, he was found. A wealthy lady who visited the salon set her sights on the handsome man. Soon, Ottilio quit his job and moved to the luxurious home of his new sweetheart. This time he decided not to strain himself and not to spend time at work since the ladies supported him. It seemed like his dreams had come true. But there was a catch. The lady who found Ottilio was much older and more experienced than Natalia. She started her own business back in the 90s and had no plans to officially marry Ottilio. She had an iron fist. The lady held Ottilio tight. It was curious how long the charming young man would last in this golden cage. But these were his personal problems.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe to the channel.